Hey, how's everybody doing today? We have another installment of the Core Values podcast, and today is a very special day for me. We have our first Marine Corps guest, so it's going to hit home a little bit more. I might get a little bit more emotional, it might hit home for me a little bit. But today we have an incredible man. He is doing so much in his community, as well as when he served. But what he's doing in his community, he is a focal point. And I personally experienced this man's leadership. And this man is able to explain things in a way that makes everyone feel that they can understand. And he really shows people that they can overcome obstacles, but they just have to believe in themselves. And he really provides these people with all of his students, every single one of his students, when he leaves the room, does not stop talking and praising him on his leadership and how much he actually cares about what he's doing and how much the students feel that enthusiasm. So today we have Matt Allison. Matt, I just want to say I respect you, brother. Semper Fi. I'm hyped. This is our first Marine. So I'm just excited for this one. So let's just jump right into it. Let's jump right into it. So Matt, what was it like for you growing up?
So I don't want to say it's necessarily interesting. I think America's a dynamic environment. But growing up, my mom actually immigrated here from Peru in South America.
Wow.
And I was really close with her side of the family. Not that, I didn't get along with my dad's side of the family. It's just that, that part of my family took over the household, and those are the people I was around the most. And what was crazy about that is that all of the oldest siblings, right, all of the oldest kids of all my aunts and uncles, including my mom, they came to America. They all joined the American service. So it's just something that we kind of did. And I think in a way, for a lot of them, it was a way of kind of just giving back to the area that they had moved to that had given them so much. So it's wild because you look at me and you're like, this is another white dude. But I'm a first generation American on my mom's side. She's from Peru. And I had two really big influences, and they were my older cousins. One's name is Jorge, the other is Billy. And they both joined the Marine Corps, both of them. And I'm telling you, it was just like, no matter what was going on with family drama, no matter what was going on, with the world, with our country at the time, I mean, those guys always had their stuff together, like always, and I really admired the way that their family looked up to them, their own immediate family, and how I looked up to them. And I was like, you know what, like that's something I want to be later. And that was really my inspiration of going into the Marine Corps.
Wow.
So, growing up, nothing too crazy, you know what I mean? I used to try to ride ATVs, dirt bikes. In high school, I was wrestling, playing paintball a lot, just anything I could do to get a little bit of adrenaline out. And
where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Northern Virginia, originally from a place called Woodbridge, which is, not too far from DC. And then I kind of moved all over. I ended up going to high school in Loudoun County, and that's where I started wrestling, and that's where I started getting into the whole martial art environment.
Yeah.
Nova, huh?
Nova.
That's so when you decided to join the military, what was it like for your family? Were they just really supportive of you? Were you just another one? How was that going?
So they saw it coming. I talked about it. I talked about it forever. I mean, this is something I knew I was going to do when I was 5. Some kids grow up and they're like, man, I want to be a lawyer, doctor, firefighter, police officer. But I mean, literally, I had that vision set out from a very, very young age. I was like, I'm going to be a Marine. That's what I'm going to do. Jarhead was one of my favorite movies, even from a young age, as ridiculous as that sounds. But my mom almost kind of pushed that on me, because she used to say it all the time. She's like, look, when you're 18, you're out of this house, so you don't have the grades to get a scholarship, so you better go straight to the Marine Corps. And she pushed that branch specifically too, which is funny. Now my dad, on the other hand, he's very educated, he's a very successful guy, and he was kind of hoping I wouldn't do it. He wouldn't necessarily say don't do it, but he was trying to make sure I considered every other option. And it really came down to, am I going to go in enlisted right out of high school, or am I going to go to school first and be an officer? And at the time, not to put out their own, financial drama, but I know they could not afford to send me to school, because I couldn't do it myself, and my little brother to school. And I was like, look, man, I'm the older of the two, that's on me. So I was like, I'm gonna go get that taken care of. Like, I'm a grown man. You guys don't have to take care of me. This guy needs a lot of looking after anyway. He's a trip, but that was my decision. I was like, look, I enlisted, so my first 2 days of school my senior year, I actually missed class because I was up in Baltimore and getting into the MEPS program.
Wow.
Which was crazy. So that the rest of that year, I was like, man, like, where am I gonna be? Like, as soon as I graduate, I don't know. So it's exciting.
But it's also, that's kind of, you know, a lot of people can feel that security, like, I already know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
They don't have that doubt, like, I don't know what to do after I graduate. I don't know what my life is going to be like. You actually had a path predetermined in your brain, what you were going to do, how you were going to do it. It was almost like you were a Marine before you were a Marine. It was...
I'm not going to say that, but
no, you were.
Like,
but it's just crazy, that mentality. It was almost like that's what was meant for you.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, it was meant, you were molded as a Marine from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's my only option, man.
Yeah.
My head,
starts from the inside.
option.
It does. It really does start from the inside. So we'll just keep it chronologically. Like, what was it like when you left and joined boot camp? Were you like missing your family? Was that experience like traumatizing for your family? What happened?
So I went to boot camp in August, right? So I graduated in May. So I just had kind of like a last go at it, you know, with all my friends. I was like, look, this summer, like, I don't want to be in any one place for longer than a few days. Like, I want to do everything I want to do. Cause I just pictured the worst, you know what I mean? I was like, I'm about to have no life for a while. And I wouldn't say they were too worried. I think it was more or less they were proud. I mean, obviously every parent has that coming to life moment where they realize that, you know, their kids are leaving, and I think it's pretty normal. But for me, it was a different circumstance because you don't know where I'm going to be, you know, and I guess that was a little stressful, but I feel like my mom looked forward to that day. So as far as me, I was excited. That wasn't like some awful thing that was coming. I was like, man, this is going to be tough. I was like, but I'm excited. What am I going to learn? What am I going to do? So I was ready for it. I mean, I was ready for it.
Like you face challenges with excitement instead of fear.
Yeah, I look forward to those pushes. You know what I mean?
Lean into the uncomfortable.
Yeah. So it sounds like it was a really positive experience. Just kind of the whole military transition, going into boot camp. You had family that were in there. You kind of already knew what to expect, but you didn't experience it yet. When you obviously went to ITB, and after ITB, when you got attached to your first unit, did you deploy right away?
No, we had like a small workup, and we didn't know where we were going to go at the time because this was like 2013.
So what year did you join?
So 2012, August 2012 was when I went to boot camp. So I technically joined August 2011,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And then I went, you know, in the depth. So you can be in the depth for a year. So I kind of like maxed that time out. So I joined in 2011 technically, but I didn't go to boot camp till August 12th. And yeah, man, I mean, I went in there, and so when I got out, I went to ITB. When I got out of ITB, I got assigned to 2-6 Echo Company, and they had just gotten back.
For the audience, some of these acronyms we might have to elaborate.
Oh, sorry about that. So anyways, so when I got assigned to my unit, they had just gotten back from their Afghan push, right? And we didn't know, because by the time I got to the fleet, I think it was like 4 or 5 months in before we were already, you know, doing our workup. So it wasn't too big of a wait. We kind of came in and we were already doing like a heavy training regiment, and we didn't know if we were going to do an Afghan push or UDP to Japan. It was kind of coming down to what was going on in the world, and we got the UDP to Japan. You know what I mean? Which was kind of interesting because I've never been to Asia. You know, and the first place I go is Okinawa, Japan. I got off that plane. I was like, the humidity is what hit me right away. I was like, where am I? It's like Jurassic Park out here. You know what I mean?
Did you ever go diving or spearfishing out that way?
So I did go spearfishing out there because I was on Camp Schwab. And Camp Schwab was cool because you could swim out to those islands. You know, you got to watch out for those jellyfish and the eels and stuff like that. Shark Island. But yeah, I was over in Japan for a bit, and I got to go all over because I was in weapons platoon. So we actually got to go do a rocket package up on Mount Fuji, which is crazy. You know, I was like up on Mount Fuji, you know, shooting rockets at things. It was pretty wild. Then we got to go to Korea for a little bit, and in Korea we were working with the Rock Marines, and I got to tell you, those guys are some of the most eager human beings you'll ever meet in your life. But I have to tell you, man, the coolest thing about it was
what is a Rock Marine?
So Republic of Korea, South Korean Marine, right?
Okay.
So it's cool. They really try to emulate us. Like even their insignia is like kind of similar to ours. Like they really look up to us, like the United States Marine Corps. I was like, wow, it's impressive. But when we had gotten there, they were on like a weird island, and it's so funny because, well, not funny, but in Korea they're forced to do service, right? They all have to do at least 2 years. So for some of these guys, they end up going to this island where they're just training and staying ready in case something happens, with the North. It's wild. They don't see their family. Like that's where they live. And to get there, we took an HSV, which is it's like a civilian like vessel, right? It wasn't even a Navy vessel. So we were kind of like below decks on a civilian vessel and arrive on this island. And I'm like, what are we gonna be doing here? We're just like training these people. We're living under cami netting. It's like a training mission you got to take kind of seriously. You know what I mean? But when I met them was the most interesting thing because our interpreters had brought us to our counter partners, right? Like the guys, like they're rocket men, that we'd be working with. So I remember when I was a team leader, so when I went to go meet them, I went to go shake this guy's hand. He kind of like backed up on me, you know what I mean? I was like, what's going on? I'm like looking at him. I'm looking at the guy that just led me here, the only one that can speak English, because I can't speak Korean. And I'm like, hey, like, is your boy good? Like, what's going on? I thought we were here to meet each other, stuff like that. And he said he wants to know how you did it. I was like, how I did what? And he's like, he wants to know how you could kill your little brother to join the Marine Corps. And I was like, what the hell is he talking about? They literally have this notion that Marines are so hard, we're so badass, we're so, sadistic, that we had to like take out a younger member of our family to show like our worth to joining this club. And I was like, listen, not that I would ever do that to my family, but if that's what you guys believe all the way over here, I'm with it, I'm down for the world to believe that about us, That was a shocking moment for me, and that really made me proud for a second, not for the concept, but just because it's like, we're that hard and that's the impression you have of us, like let our enemies think that too, you know what I mean? I'm cool with that all day. But yeah, man, that was an experience.
So this is kind of blowing me away right now. So you don't really know this, but I was in 3-6, which is 3rd Battalion, 6 Marines. You were in 2-6, 2nd Battalion, 6
We're neighbors.
Marines. But what's crazy, I got out 2013 and I went on that UDP to Japan with you. And I was a weapons company of 3-6. And I actually climbed Mount Fuji. And I was on Camp Schwab. And you and me were literally on the same UDP.
That's crazy.
The same year.
Wow. That's crazy.
And we were neighbors, bro. Like you probably marched right because we had a march everywhere.
I probably did.
And you marched right past me.
Probably saw you in that chow hall or the gym.
I was in the gym all the time.
Or the gym.
All the time. And I play basketball too.
There you go.
Oh man, this is for the audience. This is like you're witnessing me. Like I didn't know that he and I were on the same UDP, and that was my last kind of organized deployment before I got out. And I really, going to mainland Japan was incredible, but
oh yeah,
Camp Schwab was kind of rough. I'm not gonna lie, marching everywhere, and
yeah,
that was
couldn't really have too much fun going out in town. They're kind of strict there.
Yeah, everything was kind of locked down.
Beautiful though.
It was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, stunning.
So that was your first deployment. That's when you. What did you kind of learn when you were that team leader while you were deployed that you kind of took once you got back from deployment?
The first thing, and it's not something you would think that would come to my mind first, but when you're dealing with an interpreter but working with someone specifically, you learn like I shouldn't be looking at the interpreter the whole time because I should be looking at him and letting this guy do his job, So I was a young kid then. So for me, I'm trying to explain something very complex because we're talking about firing weapon systems here that are pretty serious. I mean, with rockets, like they'll kill you in both directions. You know what I mean? And they weren't just using our systems. We were using theirs as well. I mean, this is like a full swap. So when you're working something this technical, I mean, it's stressful when you're doing it with a guy that speaks the same language that's never picked up that weapon. You're trying to make him feel confident, make him proficient with the functions of that system and fire it. You know what I mean? And I'm doing this speaking through another guy and hoping he's giving this guy the right message, So that's the first thing I learned. You got to look at the guy you're talking to, right? Because he needs to feel and see and receive your body language, The language, the substitutive language, like that's what his terp is there for. But the physical actions, like you need to give that delivery. So that was one thing. The next thing, you really just see kind of what motivates other groups of people. You kind of realize, I mean, those ROC Marines, those Korean Marines, like they're very similar to us, They got very similar passions and goals, but their own theme. You know what I mean? That's kind of interesting to me to see other cultures. So that was big because I've never been to Asia, like I said. So when you come from America, you can go to parts of Europe, right? And yeah, it's a different place, but you feel like a tourist. You know what I mean? When you go to Asia, that's a whole different ballpark. I mean, everything there is different. You know, so that's like a culture shock to me, and it was cool. It was awesome to be a part of. And what was a little interesting, we didn't know what would happen with this, but unfortunately there was a massive, what do they call them, typhoons over there. They don't call them hurricanes. So a massive typhoon, and it was Damayan. So we actually got attached. We basically stopped our UDP and got attached to the 31st MU to do humanitarian assistance. So it was a wild process, and I didn't get to go into the Philippines and, you know, go on the islands and things like that. We're basically offshore. We were just delivering food. That's really all we were doing, delivering food, bandages, things like that, anything that we could. So there, in a span of like 8 months, you know, I had seen different parts of Japan, I'd seen Korea, and I'd seen the Philippines, at least from an exterior view. So that was wild to me to like hit all three of those as a young kid. You know, I was like 19, 20 years old at the time. So
that's one go.
That's one go. Yeah, it was one pump, you know. So it was super awesome.
Wow. And I mean, for me personally, what I got right off the bat from the Okinawans, because apparently the Okinawans in the mainland
very different,
but the Asian culture, I mean, when you are going on your plane, they all line up and bow and wish you a blessed flight. And that was just completely, you know, out of my thought process. Like, why are these workers wishing us a safe flight? But it makes sense because they're being courteous and wishing you that you safe travels. And that's just the culture. I mean, the culture from the very get is just a very giving, humble, respect, all about the community.
I think we need a little more of that.
Absolutely. We should definitely learn something from that. And then when you got back, so that was your first deployment. When you got back, what was it like coming back to America?
So the first thing was the food, right? Because I'm a picky eater. I'm not kidding. Like, I'm a picky eater. And like, I don't even like tomatoes, onions, and pickles. All right, let me put it that way. Like, if I'm getting a cheeseburger, so when you're in Japan and you've seen it, those people eat anything. You know, I mean, I'm looking at people eating like live squid. It's like tentacles are moving in their mouth. So when I got home, I was like, I'm going to Five Guys, man. Like, the first place I went, my buddy was in 3-6. Actually, he came and picked me up. He was waiting for when we got back. Oh man, the first place we went to was Five Guys. You ever seen Iron Man, the first Iron Man? He comes out of that cave and he's like, I need American cheeseburgers. Like, that was me. I was like, I need the greasiest like American cheeseburger I can get a hold of. I wanted that bad. Other than that, though, it was kind of like how do I explain it? It was kind of like, is this real? When I came back, it's not that like that was a hard time or anything like that. It's just you were gone for a good amount of time and you were used to seeing different vending machines, people driving on the wrong part of the road, different vehicles. You know, I'm a huge car fan. I love cars. And over in Japan, you're seeing way different rides. You know, like, manufacturers are building different versions of certain vehicles to fit different DOT restrictions of different countries. And it's crazy to me because when I came back here, I was like, thank God I'm in America, you know, lifted Jeeps, trucks, Challengers, muscle cars. Like, I was like, I love this. I can't wait to see this stuff again. So that was cool.
The most you'd get in Japan is probably like a Skyline or something.
Oh yeah, you'll see them everywhere. I mean, especially, we did get to stop by Tokyo for a little bit. We went to mainland, and that was just wild to see all the rides out there too. It was culture shock. I feel like I was in Tokyo Drift.
When you got back, so after you got back, did you ever go on another deployment?
We did, yeah.
You did?
So when I got back, basically that was
what year?
2015 is when we deployed again. So we got back in late 2013. I want to say. Either late 2013 or early 2014.
I believe it was October 2013.
Something of that nature. So then I went straight into a pipeline of going to schools, you know, because I was doing pretty well. I'm not gonna lie. So,
what rank were you at this time?
At this time, I was a Lance Corporal when I got back, but I was already on a meritorious board for Corporal. And then I had gone. So basically, when I got back, we had a battalion rocket package. And then right after that battalion rocket package, we had what was called the Assaultman Course. Like, we had a competition, basically, for 2-6. So all the assault guys in 2-6 had, like, this, like, in-battalion schoolhouse that we did. And I was an honor grad from that. And they were like, wow, you know, this guy's on top of his stuff. So then after that, I had been to Advanced Assault Course. It used to be just be AIC generally. And then I went to AAC, right? So Advanced Assault Course, But same thing, it's an advanced infantry course. So I was the honor graduate from that. And I was also the honor graduate from Urban Mobility Breachers course. So I was an assaultman. That's kind of like our that's like our, like, I would love to go there schoolhouse. You know what I mean? It's 2 weeks of just shooting doors in, blowing doors in. You know, it was a great time. And I was honor grad from that too. And that just led to me, I guess it just put me in boards. You know what I mean? My scores were good. I wasn't getting in trouble for anything. And yeah, so by the time I was a corporal, I actually became a section leader for assault. What really brought me into the light, if you will, is that as a corporal, I went to Bridgeport for a cold weather package, which is like the worst thing you can do. If you guys have been there, I mean, it's awful because we didn't go in like the summertime. We went in the winter.
I think I know a guy.
Yeah, and that's like the worst time you can go through. So with all the injuries and illnesses and losing gear and people losing their billets, what happened was I became a platoon sergeant, but I was a corporal only temporarily, but that was a hard course to manage a platoon during. So I became the weapons platoon sergeant at the time. Weapons platoon rates a gunny, right? So I'm doing a gunny's job as a corporal, and we managed to be the only platoon that didn't have any losses in gear, and we didn't have any injuries, serious injuries. So for that, they put me back on a board. I came home, did well in the schoolhouses because obviously I was in different schools at different times. And yeah, man, so I was a meritorious corporal and sergeant. And I think I was like 21 by the time I became a sergeant. So they were calling me like a unicorn because at the time, I mean, your cutting score for a 51 was insane. So yeah, I had never actually...
What's a cutting score?
So basically, the way a cutting score works is depending on your job, right? There are different things that they weigh in to give you what's called a cutting score. So that cutting score is like a bar that you have to meet to reach promotion, along with time and grade, time and service. They have these restrictions, okay? And I think that's a good thing, but it's really not. It's like weird math, right? It's really not fair across the board. I'll be honest with you, because some people really, really, really kind of get screwed over. But it's based off of your physical fitness scores. It's based off of your pros and cons, like so how well are you doing? How well are you maintaining? How well are you improving? It's based off of shooting. And then it's based off of, what are some other things in here? I'm trying to think. What else goes into your cutting score, actually?
Your
Those are the big
MCIs.
things. Your MCIs, there you go. That's another thing I took. Okay, so
MCIs
for the record,
are Marine
Corps Institute
Corps
of
Institute.
Learning. Yeah, you have to take courses. So look, so I didn't have a TV in my barracks room. Like I just didn't. Like I was buried in my knowledge books, and I was buried in like learning other people's jobs. Because what had hit me is like when you're in weapons platoon, like it'll behoove you, as they used to say, right, to learn what a mortarman does, what a machine gunner does, right, to learn that whole aspect. Because what really kind of was a shocker to me is when I had to fill that role as platoon sergeant. I'm like, wait, now I'm not just worrying about like my A bag and the SMAWs and the optics that they need. Now I'm worrying about stakes, like literal stakes for these mortarmen. I was like, what the hell do you need a stake for? So now I'm learning about how they get their sight picture. I'm learning about how they operate. And it was sick, it was cool to learn all those different jobs. And that's something that I think I actually take into everything that I do today. If I'm going to operate in any environment, it's like, man, I want to know the whole environment. Like, I want to know how I can function in and out of there. That's crazy.
And it allows you to prepare for a situation.
Yeah, I think it does.
Just knowing that you know what they know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, so back to that. So here's what's really kind of like, I'm not trying to brag or anything like that, but it feels good. So promotions, as you guys know, when a Marine is going to get promoted, they're always promoted on the first, right? Unless they're meritorious, then it's on the second. And it's not like a big change inside of your warrant, but it's just cool to see that like you're promoted meritoriously on the second day, right? That's kind of like a special thing.
Back-to-back meritorious.
Back-to-back meritorious,
Little
yeah.
distinguishment.
Little bit of distinguishment there. That felt good, but at the same time, like I kind of work hard, you know what I mean? And everyone knows how it is when you're good at your job, you're doing everyone else's job. So that's what I was there to prove is like, look, if the chips fall this way, like I'm ready to do your job because I care about these guys. I want to know everything that I can for these guys.
Pick up the slack.
Especially for the audience, a Marine not having a TV in his room that's a rare
Xbox.
That's a rare occurrence. Every single person, especially if they're in the infantry, is gaming
all the time.
gaming, and it's kind of just the culture. It is what it is. We drink and fight.
So we have something called a Hasty Breacher's Brief as an assaultman, right? And it's 8 lines that you use to basically inform the team you're working with of the obstacle, what you're going to use on the obstacle, what the dangers of that device are, and that's it. So you're going to give a brief description of the door you're going to go through, the obstacle you're going to go through, what you're using, what your standoff is, what the dangers are, right? So how do you train that? So what I used to do is I used to pull like fake stuff to make charges with, like, you know, just like cat cable, lots of duct tape. We'd have like fake pieces of C4, things like that. And I was like, look, if these guys have to learn how to put this on a door, I was like, what are Marines doing all day in the barracks? They're playing freaking video games, right? I was like, so for training in the middle of the day, like, they're not playing video games. I'm not going to waste time and disappear somewhere and pretend like we're working. I was like, dude, we're breaching people's doors here. We would literally line up on their doors in the barracks and see if they notice, you know, see if they notice a stat going on. If we were passing a window, they were crouching to get to that door and cross over. I was like, look, this is an opportune training moment. But I wouldn't just do it in my company because you know how it is. They're a quad setup, right? So I would go over to Fox's side. I would go over to Golf's side. And, you know, if the duty came around, I'd explain, like, sir, this is what I'm doing. You know, this is what I'm trying to achieve. Never once had they had a problem with it. But it's funny because we would do that. And on the blast, right? So just so you guys are aware, like, we don't go 3, 2, 1, bang. We go, right, like, stand by for short count, 5, 4, 3, 2, boom. That's it, right? Unless it's a tactical breach, so you be quiet. But in this circumstance, we would do those, and on bang, I'd have one of my Marines just bang that dude's door hard, and we would take off in displays. So it was funny as hell to me. It was like ding-dong ditching, but we were actually putting a charge on her door. Taping that shit and everything, man.
Did you throw a frag when you entered as well?
No, but what's funny is I told them straight up, and I was like, look, it'll be on me. Like, I'll take all the punishment for it. Because I was, like, I had fun doing this, but I really believe in the training value. So if that door came open, you're supposed to grab them. Like, if you were putting on it, they came out, I don't give a fuck who it was, right? Sorry for my language, but I was like, you better kick that dude in the chest, you better pull him out, you better do something. I was like, that's a threat as soon as that door opens. So that was funny. So there have been some times where I've grabbed some random people, but you know how it is. You get to know people inside of your battalion, so it's all good.
One of the best things about being in an infantry unit is the way that they incorporate training and fun. Everything that they do sucks. 100%. Everything in the infantry sucks. But you find ways to make things interesting, find ways to make things fun. So like that type of training, you as an NCO, I would have loved you. I mean,
it's a good time. Just
because you would have brought out the best in the people underneath you, because even on downtime, you're still doing things that are applicable to real life situations that you have to use. Like, you're always in a combat mindset, no matter if you're playing video games or if you're out, you know, doing a patrol. And that's, you know, constant combat mindset. That so when you got sergeant, where was the second place you got deployed?
So the second place we got deployed, we were actually attached to the 26th MU. That was my entire deployment. So I mean, we were all over that area. So I'm not sure if you guys followed up with what happened with Mosul, but basically 2-6 went to Mosul to Camp Bell to support the fire base that they were doing artillery on.
Where's Mosul?
Mosul's in Iraq.
Okay.
Right. So this was in 2015, pushing into 2016, when we actually had put troops back in Iraq, and it was a Marine unit. And unfortunately, they only pulled like a third of our company, so I didn't get to go. We were in Kuwait, staged by, but we didn't get to go into Iraq with them, which kind of sucks, you know what I mean? Especially when you don't have your whole family there. And unfortunately, they did take casualties there, which sucks. And just a quick shout out for Staff Sergeant Lewis F. Carden, because he actually did. He was our KIA during that deployment, and they had received a rocket attack, and he was basically just going around shoving people down in their holes, and he got hit, unfortunately, you know. But he was doing his job, taking care of his boys like any staff NCO would, you know. So definitely RIP to that man, and it's kind of sad to see. But yeah, so we were kind of all over. Where'd I go, man? I mean, we stopped everywhere, so many different ports. I mean, we were in Djibouti, Jordan, Kuwait, different parts of, you know, UAE. That was one hell of an experience. And I think what shocked me the most is we were going through the Suez Canal. And I don't know if you guys have ever looked into the Suez Canal or been through there yourself, but the Suez Canal is a man-made channel that separates Jordan and Egypt, right? And there's actually there's a lot of funny memes because there was a ship that was sideways stuck in it. I don't know if you guys saw that. That's the Suez Canal. But that is the single most dangerous water crossing in the entire world. right? I mean, it's not that far across. I think it's like 100 yards across at points in time, right? So it's wild because we've received videos from our counter intel guys of rocket attacks coming, you know, like onto ships. So we're like, okay, so obviously you're standing out there. So I'm standing out there. I'm sergeant of the guard at the time. You know, I've got different people in machine gun positions, DMs at different positions, you know, just to help, you know, guard the ship and look out for threats like that. And it was amazing because as we're crossing the Suez Canal, traveling through it, there I see on the Jordan side, giant statue of a Kalashnikov. I'm like, you're kidding me, dude. I'm like, it's like, welcome to the Middle East, bro. Like when I was riding through there, I was like, this is crazy. This is just flat out crazy for me to see. That shocked me, man. You know what I mean? It's like they really live and die by the gun out there.
And just for the audience, could you describe what the Shavnikov is?
The Kalashnikov, it's a AK-47.
Yeah,
AK-47, which is kind of, you know, I guess Russian weapons out there, old Soviet-style weapons, kind of still dominate that area of the world, just because they had produced so many, and they're so reliable that they're still functioning to this day, and they were cheap, right? So a lot of old Soviet Union era places just distributed these weapons all across, you know, Asia, the Middle East, places like that. So a Kalashnikov is an AK. It's very popular in that part of the world.
So while you're doing all these operations and you actually had people in your unit take hits and casualties, what kind of were you talking to your men about, kind of rallying them and kind of keeping them mission focused? Did you have kind of just like a go-to?
So what was nice is that the entire time we were on this MEU, we were literally working with the militaries of UAE, right? So we were literally training with them, and they had just gotten back from, so they do like mini pumps, right? They don't go there for like 8-9 months like we go, but they will do like little 2-month pushes into Iraq. So we were literally there training and working with members of the UAE military, and they had just been and fought with ISIS. So it's kind of us really picking their brain and maximizing and utilizing that time to see what had worked well for them, what didn't work well for them, you know, what the tactics were at the time from ISIS. Because the issue is we knew that at the time we were developing a multi-phase war where it had started with, you know, planes flying over, you know, doing bombing runs. Then it got to the point where we supported facilitating arty positions all the way down to boots on the ground, you know, and it was just interesting because it's like, we don't know when or if we'll be in there, but that's what got my, like, that's what I would use for my guys is like, look, I don't care if you're on a ship, I don't care if you're at a libo port, I don't care what we're doing on this MEU, you have to stay ready because that's what we're here for. That's literally why the Marine Corps exists, and people don't realize that, right? Because they're like, well, there's an Army, there's a Navy, right? There's a Coast Guard. Like, why do you have the Marine Corps? Like, do you need the Marine Corps? I don't want to say no in the sense that you don't need us because, like, we know that we're needed, but technically no, right? You want the Marine Corps, right? You want that bully on the playground. And the one thing that we can do that no other force can do, and it's amazing to see it firsthand being on a MEU, motherfucker, within 24 hours, if there's a warning order, we're boots on deck somewhere. Because we're somewhere everywhere, and no one else can do that like we do that, right? And that's why we're needed. That's why we're so badass, right? Because it's on a flip of a switch. Like, you do the wrong thing, you mess with the wrong interests of America, like, there we are, man. And you're about to see why they have stories.
What's this saying? Expeditionary forces in readiness? Is that a thing?
Well, that makes sense. It makes sense because we're always ready. That's always ready to fight. But it's also, you know, every embassy has Marines at it. So
100%.
If you really want that smoke, you know, we we have embassies in every single country.
Knock on a door.
We can just make it happen at a flick of a wrist.
Knock knock.
Yeah, and we saw that firsthand again. I mean, we got that order to go in. We were staged in Kuwait. Got that order to go in. Helicopters came in, took, you know, some of our boys, which is, man, that was the most heart-wrenching thing in the world to say. Like, what's crazy is the Marines that I had trained, right? Like, the guys I had trained, I was sitting there at their armory draw, you know, like, watching them take their shit, and it sucked so bad because it's like, man, the last thing going through my brain before I'm saying bye to these guys is like, did I do a good enough job training you? Right? Like, did I make you disciplined enough? Did I teach you to fight your ADHD and your ADD, to pay attention to what the hell is important at the time? Like, are you thinking about everything? You know, are you prepared for everything? Are you doing all of your equipment checks and ops checks and functions checks? Like, don't be fucking lazy, you know? And I hope I beat that into them. And I don't want to say luckily because it sucks that anyone got hurt. Multiple other people were injured on that. We had one KA, but I was just lucky that none of the guys I had personally, really trained under my wing, like, got hurt. And it sucks to say that other people did, but that was a breath of fresh air, because when we first got the news that we had lost some people, or lost Staff Sergeant Cardin and had several others wounded, we didn't know who it was at the time. We knew we took losses. I didn't know who, right? Until later, and when I got that news, it was like, well, thank God, like, my boys are okay. Like, that's the first thing that goes through your mind. It sucks when you're sitting there. It's like you got slapped in the face. And that's the thing that everyone felt, right? It's like, we know some of our boys, some of them that were living on that ship with us, at libo ports with us, drinking with us, eating with us. They took a hit, and here we are sitting someplace. There's nothing we can do. You know what I mean? Like, it's the worst feeling in the world. It's like getting slapped with your hands behind your back.
It's the feeling of helplessness.
Yeah.
And the worst part is it's combined with anger, it's combined with sadness, it's combined with, uncertainty. You don't know if you're going to be called next,
right.
When that's going to happen. So there's so many different emotions that are going, like, at that moment. And especially hearing, stories. Not the worst part, but the most gut-wrenching part is hearing stories about the people that, got taken.
Yeah.
And that's the part that really just hits me. We had a suicide when we were out there. But just the stories that make it real. It makes it like, instead of a statistic, it's like, wow, that person actually talked and actually, contributed, and
right.
people actually cared about this person.
A face and a name,
Yeah. And it's something that it grounds you, but it stays with you. It's not just something that's like, okay, that's cool. It's like, wow, this person with that person may even have a family, friends, personal life, and then now that person is gone, and you have to. It's different when you see it like from the outside looking in, but if you have to live with the friends that knew that person, it almost like an emptiness inside them every time they walk around. Everything they
hurts.
do.
It hurts. Some of the guys I was friends with on that ship were working directly under him and just weren't part of that number that went, and that really sucked to be there with them. Like one of my lifting partners, like, I'm on a ship lifting with this guy every day, and that was his staff NCO. It just sucks to see crap like that.
And what comes out is all the stories and the impact that person had. It's a common thing in the Marine Corps, especially because we have the shortest life expectancy. We also are the smallest branch with the longest amount of training. So when we do go out, it's to finish the job.
100%.
Come out on your shield if you don't, or flak. And it's hard for our community because we have so many people that go through these things, and then they are just trying to figure out, oh, well, how do I deal with these emotions? I want to punch and cry. Like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's sad. I'm sorry to hear about, the suicides that you've had from your friend group. And I've had, unfortunately, the past 2 years, I've had several of them myself. And those are guys I've deployed with, and it sucks to see. And, I think they try to put people through courses, right? Like, you go through what's it called, TRS when you're getting out. I don't know what they call it now, Taps and Readiness. It's kind of like one of those annual training courses that they just feed to you every year to get a check off. But that's not a course you should do that with, because a lot of these guys are very young kids. I mean, think about looking at a college kid between the ages of 19 and 22, When they're getting out of college, a lot of them are going to their parents' house, and they're chilling, like they're trying to figure out what to do with their new degree. Well, you have these guys who are the same age, but they've become men. But they've become men and grown up in a very different environment than the rest of the world. These guys are pit bulls, like everything that they do is based off of being more and more proficiently violent. At least my experience, every day, it's like you said, I'm always in a combat mindset in the sense of how can I be more efficient at destroying the enemy every day. That's your job. That's what you do in the Marine Corps infantry, right? So a lot of these guys that were kind of, ass clowns and didn't really do the best when they were in, they always had to have someone pushing and holding their hand. These guys think they have a much easier life in the civilian world, and realistically they don't. Is it as dangerous? No. Are you going to be Are you going to be, crossing a freaking leech infested creek at 3 a.m? Probably not, unless you're like really drunk. You know what I mean? But other than that, everything is set out in front of you. You need a tax guy? They got a building for that with a Marine in uniform. You know what I mean? You need to do something legal and get married? They got JAGs for you. You need to do anything? It's there. It's there on base, or there's guidance for it. Or there's an older member that can point you in the right way. You've got a schedule. You're eating every day. You're getting paid. You got your Medicare. Like, it's insane. Or TRICARE. It's just insane because then you leave that. Where's your direction? Where's your push? Where's the consequence if you're lazy, right? That's another thing. In the Marine Corps, if you're lazy, you're going to pay for it, right? If you're messing up, you're going to know. Exactly. You're going to get that hard knock on your door, that kicking of your door, right? You might take one to the chest from a boot when no one's looking. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But in the civilian world, no one's holding your hand. No one cares. Like, no one's going to take care of you. And what sucks is they talk about do something that makes you bigger than yourself, or be part of something bigger than yourself. When you're in the Marine Corps, I don't care how much you hate it. I don't care how much, you're going to talk shit on this member or that member or someone in charge of you. You love those guys. You love those guys. You might pretend that you don't like some of those guys, but you love those guys, man. And when you get out, one thing I had to realize is like, how do I deal with people that aren't as aggressive, that, aren't always as laser focused, that don't have the same spatial awareness, But it's like, where are my boys? You know what I mean? Like, those are guys that you're flying in a freaking helicopter at 2 a.m. with your FPGs on, looking at them and they're making funny faces at you and stuff like that. Like, those guys in and out. It's like you know what they're thinking. And then you get out and you're just dealing with regular ass people, but you don't know how to be a regular ass person, and you kind of feel alone because you were part of something, man. Everyone's got a job. They got their specific role, but when you get out, you're just another fish in a big pond. And I think that like loss of purpose, that loss of family, I think that really messes with people, and they don't know how to train and do it. And I'm going to be real with you, man. Like, that's why I do martial arts. It's why I teach martial arts. It's why I like to do it. Keeps my head right. Keeps my head very right, because I have to do something hard, man. I feel like I have to earn my right to walk around. And by doing that, every time I have a hard practice, every time I'm going at it with someone, it's like I have to use my energy, but I also have to use my mind to like beat this guy, right? And by the end of every workout, every day I leave off those mats, I'm like, okay, like I'm a productive member of society again. Like, I got that out of me, you know what I mean? I need to get that out of me.
So how soon after you got out of the military did you really go into the mixed martial arts?
Instantaneously.
Right away?
Yeah, like instantaneously. So I separated. So what's interesting is, so you know how it's 4 years of active duty, 4 years of inactive ready reserve. So I actually had a, I hope I don't get him in trouble for saying this, but I had a family member who was working down in MacDill as a Marine, and he was an admin guy, right? So through my IRR, I extended a year and came to his office, and I was a 0351 doing a 0211 or 0111's billet. And it was crazy because I showed up there, right? And basically the way my cousin had, it's my cousin, guys. I'm not going to drop his name. I don't want to get in trouble. He's out now. He's out.
Grunt's doing admin.
But listen, so here I am, I had like a month to myself after I ended active duty, and I was like, look, I want to fight. I want to move to Florida. I want to go to school in Florida, but the issue is during the time I should be applying for schools, taking SATs, doing things like that, we were on our MU. Like, I wasn't getting any of that done. You know what I mean? So it was like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, sell cars? Like, what would I do? You know what I mean? I'm just going to do something to get by until I figure it out because I know I want to fight. So my cousin hits me up. He's like, look, man, you're probably going to tell me to go fuck myself, but I can't stand these guys in this office. He's like, these guys are all on, like, limited duty, light duty. Like, they're out of shape. There's a lot of second and third class PFTers, and I'm sitting here, like, ready to throw up in my mind because in the infantry, like, if you're a second class PFTer, yeah, look, you might not be able to get punished for it officially, but motherfucker, you're gonna get punished for that. You know what I mean? Like, it's either first class or nothing, and I'm aiming for the highest tier too. So he's like, man, I need you down here, and I'm an MAI. That's another thing, guys. By the way, I got to go to Quantico, I got to go to the Mace, and I'm a black belt MAI. That was
MAI stands for what?
Martial arts instructor. So I'll get into that in a little bit and talk about that, because I'm not gonna lie, that was one of my favorite schoolhouses. That was
with
amazing.
A tab?
With
10 or red?
10.
Okay.
10. So anyways, he's like, I need you to come down here. I think it'll really benefit these guys. I was like, look, man. I was like, I don't know shit about being admin. Like, what do you want me to do? He's like, yeah, but you still know how to keep the uniform tight. You still know how to make these motherfuckers drill. He was like, you know how to push them through PT. He was like, and look, man, I can train you to do anything. Like, I'm just going to have you run your own department. I was like, so you're going to bring a sergeant in to do a job that he's never done. He's like, look, it doesn't matter. Just trust me. So I come down there, right? I come down there, and immediately they're looking at me. They're like, there's something off about this dude and the way that he acts, because I get there and I'm seeing a lot of out of shape people. I'm seeing a lot of people. Now, guys, I'm not gonna lie to you, this is tough for me. I had never worked with females in the Marine Corps. Right? At the time, there were no women in the infantry. Okay.
Right.
So I was a little used to delivering things a certain way. Okay, I'm just gonna put it that way. Especially when people were late, okay, falling back, not on top of their knowledge. And now here's where a lot of people mess up. They use this term all the time. Every Marine is a rifleman. Now, is that technically true? Because a rifleman is an 0311, so no, I'm not even a rifleman, right? But the saying is every Marine rifleman, okay? There are basic skills that we are supposed to keep up with no matter what your job is, period. Right? It's why they all go, what's the other one? It's not ITB, it's
MCT.
MCT, there we go. That's why they all go to Marine Combat Training, right? Every MOS after boot camp. If you're not going to ITB, if you're not infantry MOS, right? So I would knowledge check these motherfuckers, you know what I mean? I'd be up in the morning, I'd be like,
maximum effective range of M16 and 4.
what's the muzzle velocity of an M16? You know, things like that. You know, I'm going, you're firing, click, what are you doing? Like, having them doing functions checks and looking for stovepipes.
What's condition 1?
Dude, oh my, don't even get me started, bro. So these guys would look at me, you know, these young girls, these young guys, I'll call them boys, they were looking at me like, what, Sergeant? Motherfucker! Like, I just started, like, losing my mind because I'm in here, and so a crazy thing about these admin Marines is they work with DTS, okay? It's like a Department of Travel and something. So they have civilian contractors, and a majority of them were in the Marine Corps beforehand, right? That are working with them. So when you walk in, especially on MacDill, right? And we all know how Marine Corps bases operate, right? We know when you're walking around, like, you're looking clean, you're not jaywalking, you're sure as hell not leaving shit on the floor.
Squared away.
You know what I mean? You are squared away. If you guys have never been to a Marine Corps base, tag along with family members in the Marine Corps, you're going to see nothing but the nicest kept places unless there's construction. Look, Camp Lejeune ain't ever going to be perfect. It is what it is. But other than that, you're going to see a beautiful garrison environment. If you go to an Army base, Air Force base, Navy base, it's going to be different. I promise you. It's not just being biased. It's the truth. I'm spitting facts here, okay? Now, I already couldn't stand. It's like the air was different there when I first checked in. When I got to MacDill, you know, I'm just like, what? I'm like looking around. I'm like, who is this person at the front gate? who are you? I'm not gonna get into descriptions, but like, who the hell are you gonna stop? You're not paying. I was like, are you on your fucking phone? Like, I pulled up there and I see someone's ejection port cover open, right? Airman, okay, ejection port cover open. I see that the mag is in there, and I pull up. And I'm like, do you know what condition your weapon's in right now? And this guy looks at me, he's like,
oh, yeah.
The condition of my weapon. I was like, oh.
It's good.
I'm like, look, I'm going to be here every day now. The next time I come to this gate and you don't know what condition that weapon that you're just leaving slung on you all fucking awkwardly is in, I'm getting out of my vehicle and you're going to need someone to help you, okay? He's like, understood. I was like, yes, Sergeant. All right. Like, at the gate, they're like, I'm not used to that. So look, I check in. I'm working in this admin office, and I, you know, obviously I have to introduce myself and my cousin, who was running this facility. Not gonna drop any names again.
Just big cuz.
The big cuz gave me an introduction. Now none of these people know he's my big cuz, right? So that was my time to introduce myself, and it wasn't exactly easy on them, right? I kind of went for their throats from the get-go, and I was like, look, shit's gonna change around here. Right, because it's the way their uniforms looked. It's how they were sat at their computers. It was the childish shit that they had at their desks. And listen, I understand photos of, you know, your dog, your family, little achievements in life, but I better not be walking around and I'm seeing Pokemon cards on your fucking desk next to people's packages you're scanning and submitting into MOL. I will lose my damn mind. You know what I mean? I'm seeing stuff like this. So it was a coming to Jesus moment for all of them. But the funniest story I remember from that was culture shock to me. And let me tell you guys, I had a hard time that first month. I had some people checking in on me, and I'm going to get into this in a little bit. But the funniest story I remember is I'm sitting there, and I ran something called quality assurance. That's the section that they made just for me, like in that office, quality assurance. Okay? So basically, I was just making sure that everything was submitted to the platforms that we needed, because what's crazy when you're working down there in CENTCOM, okay, is that you are tracking all of the guys that are deployed forward in different areas. So you're changing their per diem every day. You're making sure they're getting their awards sent to them and published. You're making sure that their family readiness packages are up to date. This is important shit, guys, because if they get, injured or anything like that, and it's funny because I have always made fun of the admin Marine, right? I've always made fun of the admin Marine, but they say it all the time, like, bullets don't fly without supply, right? And you also don't fight if you're not getting paid. It just sucks. So you want to make sure these people are taken care of. So you have to be on top of these guys. So I'm sitting here, and I'm a sergeant, and I'm speaking to one of the guys that works with me who is a corporal, and our staff sergeant, who I love that guy, he was actually Motor T and then did this admin B billet. But he had deployed with Victor units, so he kind of understood me a little bit better than everyone else in the office did, because none of these guys have ever been with a Victor unit. Okay.
Victor unit means active deployment status.
Correct. So I'm talking with my staff sergeant, and there's a corporal in our presence. He's just, he's in this conversation. And here comes this tall, skinny guy. Look, I'm a tall, skinny guy, but here comes this tall, skinny private, right? And he walks right up to us, okay? And he's in his greens, right? This is check-in day. This is check-in day in this little admin office, right? He walks up, no proper greeting of the day. This fool's not in parade rest. And I've never seen some shit like this, right? Because if I like ran by a lance corporal as a PFC, if I ran by a senior lance corporal, we all know this term as a lance corporal, my shit was getting pushed in. Never in my wildest dreams did I think to walk up on a staff sergeant and 2 NCOs and not give the proper greeting of the day, interrupt their conversation, and not be at parade rest. That's a death sentence, waiting to happen. So this guy walks up on us. Hey, excuse me, is this a CPAC? That staff sergeant looked at me. He looked at me, and I think he tried to say, like, don't, but he couldn't get it out quick enough. So I immediately stood up. I stood up, and I hit that fucking folder out of his hands that he had, right? His little check-in folder. Shit went everywhere. Papers went everywhere, right? My chair flew backwards, and I just started cursing. I was like, get on your goddamn thing. I was like, he was in his dress greens. And I'm like, you better start fucking pushing until I can't goddamn breathe. I was just going in on this man. I was like, that's a fucking staff sergeant. I'm a goddamn sergeant. This is a corporal. And now all these people in their chairs, they're up, they're typing, their heads are down, they're looking down. People are like, what the hell's going on in here? And my cousin walks in, and he's a warrant officer, right? So he comes on, he's like, hey, what's going on here? Right? So I said, sir, I just had to retrain this Marine in Marine Corps principles and values. I said, it's taken care of. He goes, good shit. Walks away. Now here's what you have to know about, for those who don't know, about warrant officers. Warrant officers were enlisted before, okay? They got your back. They understand how it is, but they're in a position now to where they can't exactly step on people's throats anymore, okay? But a good warrant officer out there is still there to support good behavior, all right? So from that day forward, I think people understood things were very different in that office. So I'll kind of go back into like the martial arts training aspect of everything. So I started jiu-jitsu when I was a freshman in high school. And I started doing that because I used to watch the UFC fights all the time because my Marine Corps cousins, loved that shit. They just loved watching it. And I'd be, a skinny little kid with them. They would always beat me up. That's the thing. When you're a little kid and you meet a Marine, you're like, how quick could you take me out? You know what I mean? Like, show off that McNinja belt, So I just always thought that was cool because my cousin was a black belt, the one that I was working with, right? He himself was a black belt, and I thought that was like the coolest thing in the whole world because the other one was a green belt, It's like, whatever, I'm not hating.
Pretty cool.
But this guy was a black belt, and I was like, no shit, you're a Marine Corps black belt? I'm like, this guy must be like the greatest ninja on earth, So
Facts.
I started doing jiu-jitsu because I saw Hoist Gracie just kicking everyone's ass when he was like a tall, skinny guy. And I was like, well, I'm a tall, skinny guy. Like, I want to learn how to kick everyone's ass. So I started doing jiu-jitsu, and I loved it. My first tournament, I was like 16 years old, and I got smoked because I was only like 115 pounds, 120 pounds. I was skinny, man. But they didn't have like a teens division at the time. It was just men's, and it was 150 and up. So I was just there, just like the first match I had, my dad took me there. This tatted up, looked like he was fresh out of jail. This dude just destroyed me. I'm not gonna lie, I got wiped out.
You gave up 30 pounds?
Wiped out, man. I don't even know why I entered that. I paid to get my ass beat legally. I mean, it was tough. And my dad was like, so this is what you want to do? And after that, I was like, look, I was like, if I ever come across that man again, like, I'm ruining his day. So I was doing a lot of, like, I was doing boxing training. I was doing a lot of jiu-jitsu, some kickboxing. And my coach is there. And this is as I'm getting ready to go to my sophomore year. I'm a little older. And they're like, have you ever thought about wrestling? And at the time, I was like, well, I'm not going to use the word, but, you know, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, well, wrestling is, let's just say stupid. I was like, wrestling's a joke. Wrestling's fake. And he goes, nah, man, I'm not talking WWE. They're like, I think you should go wrestle, like, in high school. I was like, with those singlets on? He's like, yeah. I was like, I don't want people touching me in singlets. He's like, look, man, it's not going to feel that way. Just take my word for it. If you want to be an MMA fighter, you got good jiu-jitsu, what are you going to do if you can't get the guy to the ground? I'm like, well, that's a good point. Like, what am I going to do? So I used to go lift after school. Because before I started wrestling, we'd go to the weight room. The weight room was in the same hallway as the wrestling room. And I would walk past the wrestling room, and there'd be this same dude looking at me every time, right? He's a little heavier than me, and he had this stupid haircut. And the guy would just mean mug me every time I would go to the gym. And I'm like, what the hell are you looking at, you know? So I was in the gym, and I'm lifting weights. And one of the wrestling coaches came in, because at the time I was like 115 pounds, 120 pounds. And he goes, hey, man, how much do you weigh? I was like 115, you know? And he was like, what sport do you play? I was like, well, this year I only did lacrosse, but like I'm trying to be an MMA fighter. I played lacrosse my freshman year just because I felt like a loser for not doing a sport. So I was like, I can hit people with a stick, like I'll do it, whatever. So I wasn't that great at it, guys.
It's big up there in
so this guy comes up to me and he's like, well, what are you lifting for? So I told him, I was like, I just want to be a little bit bigger for lacrosse and for MMA fighting. And he's like, lacrosse sucks. He's like, why don't you come wrestle? I was like, well, wrestling sucks. I was like, I want to roll around with those guys. He's like, why don't you come roll around with one of my guys and see if you can do what you think you can do to them? He's like, I understand you do all the jiu-jitsu stuff. He's like, but just try it out. I was like, well, who am I going to wrestle with? He's like, well, I got this guy in there that's mopping mats. You want to wrestle with him? It was that freaking guy. It was that dude I would see every time, right? And I'm like, that kid with the mushroom haircut top? He's like, yeah. I was like, let's do it. I like put my waist down. I was like, let's wrestle. Sign me up. So I'm sitting there, and he's like, wait, you want me to wrestle with this dude? Man, he whooped my ass on the feet, dude. He was taking me down. What's funny is I was on my back trying to like triangle choke him and shit, which isn't legal, you know? So he'd be like, what are you doing? Like, but the kid could take me down and manhandle me, you know? And I was like, there's no way I just let this dude with this bowl cut manhandle me, ever. So I was like, sign me up. Like, I'm here. Like, until I'm beating his ass, I'm here. It turns out that guy, his name is Andrew Carney, by the way, so if he sees this, I love you, bro. But he's now one of my best friends on this fucking planet, and he lives here in Tampa now. I mean, he's like my ride or die. So he actually moved down here to be closer to his boy. So literally I have to thank him because, you know, that guy got me into wrestling for the wrong reason, but he's my best friend. We live together now and everything. Like, that's who I live with. That's my lifting partner.
That's your battle buddy right there.
That's my battle buddy. So I started wrestling, and I realized, like, I got pretty good at it. And I didn't even cut that much weight. You know, I didn't think that was kind of necessary. I didn't really start cutting weight until my senior year. So I started wrestling. My first year was at 112. The next year was at 119. And then I moved up to 126 because they changed the weight classes. And I ended up being, my senior year, I was a district champion. I got injured literally at regionals. So unfortunately I didn't make it to states, but I had beaten several state qualifiers and one state medal winner during my senior year. So I was ranked, like, they had a Virginia leaderboard. So I was actually ranked in the top 10 in my state at one point in time. And it was amazing because I only had 3 years to achieve that, but I loved it. Like, everything I did was for wrestling. Like, I loved wrestling. I would go to camps in Pennsylvania in the summers. And because I'm telling you, those guys are, like, born wrestling. You guys want to know what a good American wrestler feels like? You go to Pennsylvania. Those dudes will grab you and you'll feel a different kind of strength. So I started wrestling, loved wrestling, went to the Marine Corps. I think wrestling really prepared me for that. It was that grind. It was dealing with pain. It was pushing other people. It was awesome, you know? I was very fit going into boot camp. I was fit going into ITB. I was fit going into all my other schoolhouses. I never had that issue. Then, of course, I went to the Mace. So if you guys don't know what the Mace is, it's in Quantico, Virginia. Okay, there's a facility. There's a ton of officers there, by the way, which is really weird for me, right? Because literally, I mean, that hand is shooting up. Like, my bicep was getting cramps, bro, everywhere I freaking went. But anyways, I went to the Mace, and I couldn't wait. That was my dream school. Like, don't get me wrong, Urban Mobility Breachers course, like, as an assaultman, like, that's, like, where you want to go. But I knew about the Mace since I was a little kid because of my cousin that has his black belt, right? He told me about this place, the Mace, in the Martial Arts Center of Excellence. And I used to see old UFC videos, like, embedded with, like, Rich Franklin and all those guys, and they went there. And I was like, these guys are training with the Marines in Quantico. I was like, this is sick. So I was there at the Mace learning from those guys, and all that they do there is kick ass. I swear to you, all that they do at the Mace is just they fight. Like, that's what they do. A lot of those guys are like, they don't just know the McMat program. Like, a lot of them are avid trainers, and they like to basically encourage that for the instructors there. They're like, I hope you're training outside of here. You know, so my life, when I went there to the Mace, it was nothing but fighting. But my parents at the time lived in Woodbridge. So I literally got paid to go stay at my parents' place, and I get up every morning early and just go whoop ass all day. I was like, I have the best damn job in the world. You know, it was amazing. So I left my black belt with the tab, which is awesome. So I came back to the fleet, and I could improve people's belts, and that was sick. And that really kind of got me into it. As I was like, yeah, I'm 100% fighting when I get out. So I left that admin B billet I was doing. So I have to say one more thing, actually. So when you're in the infantry, you get married to the term POG, right? Which means personnel other than grunt, for those of you that don't know. I mean, everything that you do, even when you're talking with other infantrymen, you're like, you damn POG, like, you fucking POG. Like, that's a phrase. So my cousin came up to me, and again, he was the warrant officer, so, like, with some bearing, comes up to me, and he puts a piece of paper in front of me. He created a B billet for me, so I'm still, my primary MOS is still 0351, but just because I was working at an admin shop, he created a B billet of 0111, right? So he puts the paper in front of me, he goes, here you go, you fucking POG, like that. And I was like, not like this.
No!
I was like, no!
All my work for nothing.
All my work. All the people I insulted. Yeah, so, okay, so I got out of the Marine Corps, at least doing active hours, August 2017, right? So I had moved to Tampa September 2016 because my order started October 1st, 2016 at McDill. Okay? So the first place I visited when I came to Tampa, because I came like a couple weeks before I actually had to check in, I was like, I need to know where I'm training at. Like, that's the first thing. So what got me to Gracie Tampa South, which is where I teach at. I teach the boxing program at Gracie Tampa South. I'll also help work with the teens program. I'll help out with a lot of things. Like, I'll teach jiu-jitsu classes to fill in. I'll teach striking classes to fill in. But my main class is I teach boxing. Right? I teach boxing on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. So if you want some smoke, come through. Anyways, so I came to GTS because I saw that they had Matt Arroyo there, who is a very, very established jiu-jitsu taro, right? I mean, the guy done very well for himself in the jiu-jitsu world, but he was also a UFC fighter.
A good one.
A good one, you know? And then I saw that they had Billy Q there, and he was on The Ultimate Fighter, and I was watching that because who wasn't watching that season? It was a season with Conor McGregor and Uriah Faber. So, like, I had seen this guy, right? And I was like, man, he trains here? I was like, let me come check this gym out. So I came to check that gym out, and I was already a blue belt at the time, but I hadn't been training, jiu-jitsu regularly since high school. I got my blue belt when I was 17 years old, guys.
Wow.
So I was training, like, really hard because, all the wrestling and all the jiu-jitsu, it's all I did when I was a kid was, like, jiu-jitsu and wrestling.
How many hours does it take to get a blue belt?
Who knows, man? Hours? I really don't know. It's not specific. Other gyms promote in different ways, and that's cool. That's here or there, but I would say, yeah, that's tough. I would say it takes the average person, like, a year and a half.
It's more about proficiency.
It's really proficiency. It's like, well, it's what you make out of it, right? Like, time is time. So if I'm training once a week for 2 years, like, I'm not going to be as good as a guy that's training 4 times a week for 3 months. You know what I mean? Like, that guy's just going to be better. He's going to be more proficient with his technique.
Would you say there's a learning curve?
There's definitely a learning curve. Not everyone's the same, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's just a general difference in athleticism between people. Like not everyone's built the same, and not everyone has like the mindset for that. Everyone's got certain things, but jiu-jitsu is like live chess with you and another human being. And what's wild about it is, so I talk about proprioception in my classes, by the way. Not everyone has the same sense of proprioception. They just don't. And that's kind of like, that comes into your athleticism. Athleticism isn't just your speed and your power, it's your coordination, right? It's the marriage of those things: speed, power, timing, coordination, right? And there's just a weird type of intelligence that comes with grappling, with fighting, that not everyone has, right? Like you can make a lot of people have good technique, but it's not easy for people to transition between those techniques that just kind of, like they have that or they don't. You know what I mean? Like there are people that train fighting that can even be good fighters, but great fighters, really good fighters, they just have that. They have that inner coordination, that proprioception. So there's definitely a learning curve. I just think some people will pick that up quick. It also depends, do you have the right coach? That's another thing, right? And I'm big about this because that's a Marine Corps trait that I take in everything. I have to explain, if I'm trying to shoot at a window, right? And you're at a different angle to me, you're not seeing the same sight picture I'm seeing. So I have to explain to you like how to lock on a target, big to small. So when I'm explaining technique, a lot of these coaches, I'm not trying to hate on other coaches or say that I'm, the best guy out there, but a lot of these coaches just see their point of view and they're like, do this. And they kind of just expect that they know what you're talking about. Like they've been doing it from your eyes their whole life. You have to use analogies. I'm a big analogy guy, right? I use analogies so that people can use a common picture and they're like, okay, I get what he means by that. And then they can kind of perform the function. So for me, I don't just like to say, perform this combo. I like to do a step-by-step breakdown of why I'm doing this technique, what I'm looking to achieve with it, and what my after actions are. And that's how I train every class. It's kind of like, to be honest, it's a lot of philosophy. Like my class goes over a lot of philosophy of fighting. Because I want you to know the whole game of fighting, not just
The art of it.
not just how to throw like one jab, or like throw a jab cross. Like I want you to know like where your legs are going to be, where your shoulders are going to be, like how you're rotating your hip, like what's your distance, move with a purpose, exit with a purpose, follow up with a purpose. And I think the Marine Corps really just like beat that into me, because when you're training young Marines, you got to be as aggressive without breaking them as possible.
And efficient.
And
because wasted effort could be life or death.
Could be.
100%.
And
that's why, especially in the Marine Corps, you over practice. And, it gets to a point where you're sleeping, and when you close your eyes, you're actually going through all the motions that you were doing while you were awake.
Yes.
So it's like it's hardwiring it in your brain where you can't forget it even if you wanted to.
Yeah. Can't.
With regards to getting out of the Marine Corps, right? We talked about maybe people have an issue transitioning, and I was going to say words of encouragement: continue sharpening your sword, right? And they typically, they might paint a grunt a little less educated than what they may be, right? But the truth of the matter is, these guys sharpen their sword on all different angles. For example, you have education of your own, don't you?
Yeah. So when I got it was actually a smooth transition. I got some funny stories from that, man. But when I say smooth, I just mean paperwork wise, it was smooth. So I got out August 12th, 2017. And I'm trying to remember the exact day I started school for UT, but it was late August. All right, we're talking like a week maybe. Okay, so I had transitioned from
Pretty smooth
5 years of service to going into school as a freshman at the University of Tampa. Okay, because they have the Yellow Ribbon program. I didn't have to pay to go there. I'm amazed I got in there. I'm not gonna lie. My grades in high school.
What was the Yellow Ribbon program?
So the Yellow Ribbon program was created. So basically anything that the VA and so schools have to join this, right? It's like an association. So not all schools are on the Yellow Ribbon program. So basically anything that the VA will not cover, like if it's above the VA's budget that they're giving you, the school will pay the rest of it. So you still end up not having to pay anything. Guys, I didn't pay a cent for my education. That's what's crazy. I didn't pay a single cent. And I think it's amazing that we exist in a place, in a country, to where our service members are taken care of. And that's why it's so sad, because I tell these guys, I'm like, listen, why don't you go to school? There's no reason not to. It's free. Like they're gonna pay for it for you, and they're gonna give you housing allowance. They're gonna pay you to go to school. In Tampa, I don't know what it is now. I hope it's gone up with the crazy inflation. But in Tampa at the time I was going to school, it was about $2,000 a month they would pay me.
I got 3,000.
Was this program?
FGCU down in.
Oh, okay. I was like,
yeah, but also in.
Was this program exclusive to UT? Like the
No. There's several different schools. There are a lot of schools. In the
DCU actually, that's how I got in. Was the Yellow Ribbon program.
Actually, there's really helpful for you veterans that are listening, or you guys that are still in, that are thinking about getting out. I wish I had the website for you. So this is kind of shitty that I don't have it. But there are tools where you could literally go up. I think it's through VA.gov.
You have DEERS. You have VA.gov. You have. It may have changed. I got out in 2013, but if you search veteran benefits, but also Yellow Ribbon program, there's so many benefits.
There's a search tool.
Yeah.
Basically, you could type in the area that you want to go to school in, and it will show you schools that are listed under the Yellow Ribbon program, and that'll kind of help you with your applying decision and process. So, anyways, I had gotten into UT. Actually, I got to show you guys this. Funny, I got this ugly. I don't know if the camera can see this. I don't know if I want them to see this.
I had beautiful.
I had to take a picture and submit it so that they would have a picture of me for my student ID, and they needed it by a certain deadline. And I was sitting there in my admin office.
Yeah.
And I took this horrible selfie, and that's what they use. So I have this ugly ass picture to remember forever.
Well, it's motivated.
Yeah, super motivated. So anyways, within, like a week and a half, 2 weeks, there I was. I'm a college kid now. I'm a freshman. Right? How crazy is that? I'm a freshman. And that was a shocker because I don't know if you guys have ever seen 21 Jump Street, right? But I was like, man, do I wear the 1 strap, the 2 strap? I was like, are Nikes still cool? Like, do I show up in Air Maxes? Do I show up in Air Forces? Am I wearing Vans? Like, what's this going to be like, But at the same time, I was there to learn because I'm not a kid anymore, So I would sit up in the front row every time. In high school, I was in the back. And that's another change, right? I was in the back of every single class in high school. Except history. I love history, guys. I'm a history nerd. But anyways, I was in the back of every single class. In college, front row. Right there. Why? Because I'm a Marine, like we eat crayons and shit. So I was like, I need all the help I can get. When the last time I did algebra was? Are you kidding me? These nerds are taking like calculus and trig and things like that. I'm like, look, I need pre-algebra. Like I need to go back. Pre-algebra. I haven't done math. Well, I used to do math as an assaultman, but that's very simple math. Okay? Like you just learn formulas.
They tell you what to do.
They tell you the formulas and you just remember how to do the formula. It's super easy once you get down to it. Okay? But I was very, it's been a while since I've been in school. So I wanted to make sure I didn't fail because how would that look? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a loser. Like, I'm a Marine, I want to come in here and pass at least. Jesus, it's college, it can't be that hard. College was tough, I'm not going to lie to you, but it wasn't too tough for anyone that's been through what we've been through. So the culture shock, right? I'm sitting there in history class, all right? Literally my first week of college. And I'm up in, towards the front, and the guy next to me, right? And just right in front of the professor, just puts his head down in his arms. Like, he just kind of moves the shit, lays his head down, and I'm like, I can feel my eyeballs, right? Like, I can't see it myself. But guys, you have to remember, a week or two ago, I'm choking somebody, in my head. Like, I'm not going to say I was choking people, but you know what I mean? It is what
Figuratively
speaking, I'm after these people's lives. So I'm seeing this guy just put his head down and disrespect this professor, and I lost it. Like, I could feel my eyes open up. I just took my pen, right, and I threw it at his neck. I was like, what the fuck? So my professor's looking at me. Everyone in class is looking at me because this kid was 18, right? These kids in this class are 18, maybe 19. And maybe if they were a junior, they just needed an extra elective. They were in there, and maybe they were 20, 21. But this is young kid, and he looks at me like, what? I think there was a second of do I do something about this or do I not? But he could tell it was secondhand nature to me. I was like, that was just so disrespectful. And the professor saw it and was just kind of let it play off, right? And he sat up. He sat up. He started paying attention and looking. Some people were kind of giggling, and I felt like an asshole. I was like, damn. I kind of sat there. I was like, fuck, I'm not in the Marine Corps anymore, But that sticks with you. So the class leaves, and I already sat there and I stayed after because I knew I was going to get a talking to. I was right. There's no way that's going to fly under the radar. So she closes the door. And she looks at me, and this is what I like about UT. It's a private school, right? Small classroom size. That's what I need. And she goes, Matt, I admire you for what you did. I really appreciate that. She's like, but I'm going to have a hard time explaining to people's parents and members of the board here how their son got hit in the neck with a pen. You know, they're like, this isn't the Marine Corps. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I swear it won't happen again. And I was like, I may or may not have another outburst, but there won't be anything physical out of it.
Tell the parents
There are lawsuits.
You know, there are lawsuits. They exist, you know, and I don't need that in my life. Yeah, so that transition was crazy. So that's what I was doing. I was literally going to school, getting my education while fighting and working like part-time jobs. Like I would work at the gym, things like that. So,
quick question. How did that make you feel? Like, obviously, when you have an outburst like that, me personally, from when I've had those experiences, it makes me like be a recluse and be like, feel like I'm a danger to the people around me. And then I don't know how to control it. So it kind of like made me less confident with my actions.
Yeah. So it kind of did embarrass me a little bit. Like I embarrassed myself a little bit. Not too much in the sense that like I was worried about what other people thought, because it really didn't bother them that much. Like, to be honest, a lot of people kind of received me very well being a veteran student. They knew that they could work with me and get stuff done, like in our groups. Like they knew I wouldn't play around too much. Something wrong, I had my fun, but like they knew I would take things seriously. They knew I had a little bit of a different outlook on life. I think most people appreciated that. But what I was embarrassed about was, it's like you have to learn how to adapt, right? That's what we do. You know what I mean? Like. So I was like, I need to be able to learn how to adapt to dealing with this kind of thing, because like I'm out of the Marine Corps now, right? And I got to fight those little urges like that, like snapping your fingers and pointing the knife hand at someone's face. You know what I mean? Like, hey, bitch. Like,
your brain's not out of the Marine Corps.
It's still
your body is the only thing out of the Marine Corps.
It's just secondhand nature. You know, you gotta watch. You gotta sheath those knife hands, bro. You gotta put them on safe. So yeah, that was just tough, but it was wild because you know how like you get excited for introduction day, like when you come to a new class during a syllabus week. Everyone's like, hey, my name's CZ, and you know, I was in Puerto Rico for the summer. It's like, hey, I'm Matt, last summer I was in the Middle East. I'm also a cage fighter. The people are like, what the hell is wrong with you? You know, like, who's this guy in my class? So back to GTS. So I looked up GTS, and that's the first, like, I signed a membership with GTS before I had a place to live. Like, I was staying in hotels for like a week, right? And I was like, I'm gonna get this nailed down first. Like, that's what I came to Florida for, right?
That's the mental health.
That's the mental health,
First
right? I was
first.
like, I need to come here. The reason why I moved to Florida was because in my head, that's the mecca of fighting in America. I was like, I think the best fighters come from Florida. So if you're gonna fight as an amateur, like, why would I go home to Virginia and be around my no friends, but like some of my loser friends? I already left home. I already saw the world. Like, it's time for me to go to a new place, which happened to be Tampa. And I was like, man, I think Miami would be too much craziness for me, right? I would get in a little bit of trouble and get lost in my way. I was like, Tampa is the right amount of, from what I've seen, Tampa's the right amount of like fun and work. And I was like, and there's a lot of good history with fighting down here. Like, boxing's huge here, kickboxing's huge, like jiu-jitsu's huge, like everything's huge. So I went to GTS, and I remember there's a woman that works there. Her name is Jules, and she's the best. I'm telling you, this woman is amazing. Like, she does anything and everything for everyone there. Like, she's a huge, huge piece of that gym. I'm telling you, she's such a big part of that environment. And I remember speaking to her on the phone when I was calling the gym. I'm like, hey, y'all got fighters here? They're like, yeah, we have fighters here. I was like, no, you have like real fighters here? Like, not just like Matt Arroyo and Billy Q? They're like, look, she was like, look, if you want to come fight, this is the place you need to be at. I was like, look, I'll see you on Monday. You know, like, this is like Friday like afternoon I called, and I was like, I'll see you Monday. And I show up there, I jumped into all the cap classes, and Monday is sparring day, right? So I hopped right into sparring. You know who my first sparring partners were? My first sparring partners at GTS were Billy Q, Matt Arroyo, and Danny Matos. And if you know who those guys are today, two of them are in the UFC. And one is a stud. He's got some injuries, but Danny Matos is a freaking killer. And I was leaving that place with like nosebleeds like every week, you know. And I came from a place to where, because I had trained in high school and got to the level I had gotten in high school, I was kicking a lot of ass with my infantry buddies, right? I got humbled quick at Matt Arroyo's gym. I mean, not that I was had a bad attitude towards any of those guys at all. Not like that. I didn't come in there hot-headed or anything, but I came in there thinking like, I'm a double leg, pass all your guard, ground and pound you, you know, like outbox some of you. Yeah, right. I learned quick. I was getting beat up by those guys, but look where they're at now, right? So I kind of had a baptism by fire in that aspect. So that's what I was doing. My first cage fight actually came in January 2017, So I wasn't even at the gym that long. And the way this had worked out is I was just in the sparring, and they're doing it now, but at the time as well, there was no split between pros and amateurs in the sparring room. It was just like, you come here to swing and bang, you know what I mean? So you better be good at what you're good at, but this isn't like, this is the life of hard knocks in here. Like, you're in here with killers. It was a smaller gym at the time. Like, everyone you're in there with is like a good scrapper. So I was just doing pretty well, and he's like, hey man, like, this is Billy who I'm talking about. He's like, you want to fight in January? He's like, I know you've only been here like a few months, but like, you want to fight? I was like, hell yeah, sign me up. He's like, all right, cool. Here's the problem. The guy you're fighting, his coach used to be our striking coach here. So you gotta beat this guy. Like, we got something to prove. You know what I mean? I was like, okay. I was like, what's his record? Well, he's 1-0, but he has an 8-second KO. I was like, all right, that's fair. I was like, that's fair. Whatever.
Got a cannon.
Might as well go in there. So I took that fight, and I had to take it up in weight because originally we had signed to fight at 35, and then it was like a week and a half out, and the guy was like, look, like, I gotta do it at 45. And Billy was like, are you still okay with this? Like, he's not going to make weight and stuff like that. And I was like, dude, I trained to fight somebody. Like, I'm fighting somebody next week. Like, it's happening.
Exactly.
Right? So I came in there and won by a unanimous decision, which was awesome. And I was actually still in the Marine Corps at the time when I did this.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. It's January 2017. Yeah, exactly. So I had just been in my unit for not that long. So this is right before college, but right after I left Camp Lejeune. So this is like my time as an avid Marine here, so I was still in, and I got approved to do these fights, right? Mm-hmm. So I actually had fought twice while I was still in the Marine Corps.
Wow. So
I went and dominated this fight, and it was awesome because I had like my service members there,
mm-hmm.
and then I had like my cousin there. You know what I mean? It was sick. So after that, I was like, man, I'm hooked. I was like, I got interviewed and everything. I was like, I'm here to stay, baby. I was like, look out. I was like, remember the name.
Matty Ice.
I'm coming to fight. You know, Billy Q actually gave me that name. I didn't even give myself that name. He
really?
started calling me that. Yeah, I didn't even have a name at the time. But he used to call me, he was like, Matty Ice, like that. So that's literally why I go by that name. Yeah, I haven't got a jersey on.
Yeah, he's got the Matty Ice. What's the number on the back?
Matty Ice MMA 135.
There it is.
Back because I was fighting a bantamweight. So anyways, yeah, so my first fight, I took up weight, and after that, I was instantaneously hooked. I'm like, all right, I need to keep fighting. And then what's sick is that my second fight was also a featherweight fight, even though I was only weighing like 141, 142 at the time. And I didn't know I was fighting in this fight until weigh-in day. Billy hits me up, like, earlier in the day. He's like, hey, guys, there's like a list of me and like several other dudes. They're still at this gym today fighting, by the way, all except for one of them. But it was John Arce, who's a pro. He fights for CFFC. And it was this guy named Olu, who he kind of bounces between gyms, but he's still always in our sparring room. You'll see him a lot. So it was the three of us and this guy named Scotty, who was an intelligence Marine, right, at the time. Still in doing his, like, ricky-ticky-tick shit, you know? And he was fighting. So here I am with a gunnery sergeant, right, who was a counter-intel Marine who just happened to be training at my gym. And, like, here I am, like, I was out. He was still in, but I was a sergeant, and I'm fighting with like on the same card as some guy I'd be looking up to a lot. He's a serious dude. So anyways, I get a text with all of us in it, and he's like, "Yeah, I need you guys at weigh-ins." And I was like, "Wait, why do you need me at weigh-ins?" Because I was in the gym. I'm always in the gym. You guys will see me there. Like if I'm not injured, like I'm training multiple times a day, every day. Like I live there. So like I'm always ready. Like. Technically wise, like maybe I'm not eating the right things, or maybe I'm not on the right lifting regimen, or like maybe I'm going out and partying too much, which I used to do a lot, whatever, it is what it is.
For Marines.
We like to party, it is what it is. But I was always ready technically for a fight. So Billy was like, yeah, just like keep in mind I might find you a fight for this card, but hadn't told me shit. So on weigh-in day, he's like, hey man, I need you here at this time. And I was like, what do you mean you mean this time? He goes, oh, I forgot. Like I got like a little emoji. This is Billy Q. This is the guy that teaches you on Thursdays, all right? He goes, oh, I forgot, with like that like emoji with like the sweat drop going down his face. He's like, yeah, I got you a fight at 145, even though I'm a bantamweight, right?
Can you make it?
So he's like, yeah, well, he knew I could make the weight. So he's like, yeah, can you show up here by 4? I was like, fuck yeah, I'll be there. So I show up, not even knowing I was fighting the next day, right? And I show up to weigh-ins, up a weight, and I was like, all right, let's do this. And I won that pretty dominantly too.
That's called always ready.
Always ready, for real. That's the mindset, right? And that's the mindset you need to have when you're a service member, a police officer, like a firefighter, an MMA fighter. You need to prepare yourself. Like, I think confidence comes through readiness, right? But you also need to have the mindset. If you're in the sport, like, look, training is one thing, but competing is another thing. The only thing saving you from the other guy and vice versa is a stranger. Like some guy you don't know in a metal cage and you got everybody watching you, right? If you don't think you're the baddest dude on 2 feet walking around, you shouldn't be in there. Like, you really shouldn't. So with me, I'm like, all right, am I going up in weight? Yeah. Is he going to be a little bigger? Yeah. Am I going to whoop his ass tomorrow? Yeah. And that's the mindset you need to have. As a pro now, because I'm waiting my pro debut, guys, for those of you who don't know, so I was a 3-time amateur state champion in Florida, bantamweight. And again, I've got wins at featherweight. I got 3 wins at featherweight. You just got to be ready, you know? So am I going to go to featherweight being as light as I am right now as a pro? No, because we know those guys, like, cut a lot of weight. Like Billy Q, I'm not going to give the exact number that he weighs, but he cuts a good amount of weight to get down to 45, all right? So the difference when I'm next to him, like, I feel it. So I know that if I ever want to go to that weight class, which I am considering very heavily, and by considering, I mean I'm just telling y'all sneak peek, I'm going to be whooping ass at 145 this year, hopefully at the end of the year. That's happening, right? But I know that if I want to compete there, for my own safety, I have to put on that weight because those guys are like me. Like, those are guys that think they're the best in the world on 2 feet, and they can give me that ass whooping. So I gotta match that and get a little heavier before I fight them because I've been getting ducked at 135. So CFFC, Rob Hirdick, if you're listening to this podcast, you have a great promotion. I know Dana White likes to visit there often, but you missed out on finding me some fights at bantamweight, bro, especially at the Hard Rock. You missed the Matty Ice show. You missed it. I'm just saying. It's okay, though. I'll be there for featherweights, and that's the contracts that you guys like to offer me.
Let them know.
See, if you miss out, then you're losing that money because I'm just telling you, this guy right here puts on a show. That's all I know. And
he'll take charge of that show.
Absolutely. And especially being a black belt in the Marine Corps, like, jiu-jitsu is more of a manipulation. MCMAP, the Marine Corps martial arts program, is meant to debilitate in the fastest, shortest amount of time possible your opponent. And it's a different mentality, but it's totally applicable. And especially being a black belt and getting humbled, that's a whole nother experience as well, because you have to be like, look, I'm eating shots, so I can't come out here with my ego.
Can't.
So kind of bringing it full circle, if you had new people getting out of the military, not just the Marine Corps, and they're kind of like figuring out what to do and they feel lost and everything, kind of like what we were feeling when we separated and we're in college and we looked like Billy Madison, we didn't know, how to relate to the people. How would you help somebody like that doesn't know what to do, where to start?
So the first thing I'm going to tell them is, just like with what happened with you when you went into the military, don't go back to your hometown. Leave your hometown and go to a new place. And that's going to sound crazy because you're like, where's my sense of security? Where's my familiarization? All that shit breeds comfortability. That's what that breeds, right? When you left your house and went to boot camp and got your duty station, you didn't live at that duty station before. Unless you just grew up, in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and just like happened to get stationed back in Lejeune. I mean, that happens for some military families. Not just that, like Army families, Air Force families, things like that. But the first thing I recommend is go to a new place, because that's that same challenge you started off with. That's that same excitement. That's that same sense of eustress, that good stress, where I have to kind of make it here. That's the first thing. The second thing, take advantage of your GI Bill. Even if you're not doing it full time, take advantage to at least learn something, because what that gives you is a routine in your schedule to build everything else off of. Because you guys are used to having a schedule. I don't care what your job was. You're used to a very, very, very strict schedule. I think you need to put something in, whether it's like, again, having a hobby, whether it's CrossFit, martial arts, I don't know, a book reading club, school. You need to have something with a set time on a set day every day so you can create your schedule, right? Okay, so that's the other thing. Next, all right, you have to understand that you're going to start kind of low anywhere you go new, right? Because people are like, man, I've deployed, I've done this, I've done that, I should be here. Yeah, sure, you might have the intelligence and the experience and the leadership of someone up here in the position you're trying to assign for. But when you started, you were a private, PFC. You're an E1, an E2 if you had that contract out of boot camp. you need to just understand that the grind is going to suck, but you can't lose sight of the future, right? So go somewhere new. Do research before, right? When you're getting out, guys, like, don't just get out and assume you're going to make $100K a year. Get out and really decide, like, hey, like, maybe I don't know what I want to do, and the Marine Corps didn't tell me what I wanted to do in the civilian world, but it sure as hell highlighted the shit that I hate, right? So don't go to that, right? Go to something that you want to learn, research what you want to learn. You guys have to learn about your weapon systems. You have to learn about your job functions. You have to learn about different orders. Learn about the industry you're going to get into, okay? Do your research. So go to a new place, get your set schedule and hobby, find a job field. Don't look for a specific job. You're looking too specific. Usually you want to look specific, right? But man, I'm not going to go out there and be like, this is the exact job I'm going to do. It's hard. Get into a field that you like, that you can move around in. And make friends that have similar hobbies with good goals, right? Don't just make friends with a guy that's like doing childish shit. Don't go to UT. Okay, I love UT, but don't go to UT and just only hang out with the college kids. Like, find older mentors. Find guys that have done it. Reach out to veterans. Reach out. There's so many like big veteran communities out there, or you can go out and reach out to someone who will be like a role model and mentor to you. So just reach out. Like, don't be afraid to reach out. That's the biggest thing. No one gets anywhere by themselves completely. You know what I mean? We all had someone helping us out.
Exactly.
That's my advice.
Even in the military, you had people in charge of you.
Yeah.
It was like you were given mentors, and they had to do assessments of you, monthly assessments, and have sit downs and counselings. That's what I was trying to say. So we obviously have a lot of people that are dealing with the disattachment of society, and also we're dealing with the war in Ukraine, and a lot of civilian Ukrainians are now experiencing war, so they're not enlisted or they're not commissioned. So the kind of dynamic of America right now is we're getting more realization on what the gravity of freedom is, and what it costs for freedom, and what happens when it's taken away, what your options are, and how you're dependent on so many other people. For people that are going through that mental block or that mental disassociation from society, that are kind of teetering with that edge, what would you tell to somebody who's kind of, on the fence on going down that dark hole and kind of staying in a functional state of mind?
You mean specifically for like the people in Ukraine going through this?
Well, I'm saying we have a lot of things happening right now that might be bringing up old feelings.
Right.
And allowing combat veterans to be experiencing traumas that they went through by seeing what's going on.
I understand what you're saying. Like having some empathy for having seen it. You know, through the other spectrum, especially all of our Afghan vets, that have really seen this kind of thing. A little different, right? Not necessarily a government, a mechanized force, but some type of ruling body that was doing pretty atrocious stuff. I don't know, man. What I would like, first of all, I understand where they're coming from. Like when I see a lot of people that are disgusted with what's going on, it's like, look, man, like I've looked into and thought about and thought of the what ifs if I got together with some old guys, and it's like, do I want to fly in to Turkey and take transport to Ukraine and check in at Kiev and join this foreign legion force that they're trying to create? I don't know. That might be an interesting spring break, but I don't know. So I can understand why some of these guys really, really feel this deeply, because they have friends and family members, or they themselves have gone through and fought this kind of shit. And I guess they're frustrated because they want more people to do more about it. And it's just tough because it's not necessarily our problem, but it's the world's problem. Like we all live here, and look what it's starting up. And I don't want to be the one to say that I'm up to date with everything, and I'm the hub of all news, but I mean, if this is happening with Russia and Ukraine, we already know what's happening with China and Taiwan now, right? That's got to be raising a lot of flags for everybody. So then you've got China looking at Taiwan over there, rubbing its hands. Now, what about North Korea and South Korea? Now we're talking alliances, and it's scary, man. Like, people forget how devastating World War II was. People forget what that did. People forget the aftermath of that. Millions of people died.
Concentration camps.
Millions of people died. Through ideologies, through policies, through beliefs, So that's the scary thing is where is this going to lead us? And I just hope that we have the proper leadership to keep our country the way that it is. And look, I hope we're able to do what we can, even if it's just sending more equipment and supplies. I hope we continue to do that, and I hope people understand. But I hope people are also seeing this and now realizing, like, look, people complain about what we pay taxes on and why our military. I see it all the time. It disgusts me, and maybe because I'm biased because, I was in the military. I have a military family. But it's like, look at the life we live here. Like, no one's flying their jets over our airspace. Like, our buildings aren't getting bombed in broad daylight. Like, our kids aren't getting taken away from their parents because, an invading force is coming. We live in an area to where we don't know what that's like. We don't see attacks on our soil like that. You know what I mean? We've had our few tragic moments, but that's not an everyday occurrence. That's not an everyday fear. That's in the back of everyone's mind, I'm never thinking, and we live in Florida. I'm not thinking about Cuba assaulting us. I get sleep with that every night. I'm not worried about it. But in countries like that, you're damn right we spend 400% more on our military than everyone else. Hell yeah, and look at the life we live, And again, that's why I'm so appreciative of all the guys that have served, like you guys, everyone I've worked with in the past, the people that I know. Like, I'll get kids at the gym, man. It's kind of scary. That's another thing is, like, people, like, some kids at that gym kind of do look up to me. And I have a kid, his name's Sean, and he's 17. He's like, hey, I'm going into the dep. Like, you have any advice for me? I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, you sure you're going into the dep? I'm like, have you thought about this, this, and this? Not to scare him, just to be like, are you sure, like, you know what you're getting into? I'm like, look at the world today. And he's like, yeah, I'm all about it. And I go, okay, so here's what I'm going to do for you.
Get your bonus.
I got my ASVAB. I got all the books that I had from the Marine Corps, like all my knowledge books. And I gave this kid a fat stack of homework. I was like, look, bro, if you just read some of my notebooks, like, you're in good hands. Like, do you know what you want to do? He's like, well, I want to be infantry. You were infantry, right? I was like, what do you want to do in the infantry? He's like, honestly, I kind of want to become a scout sniper. I was like, I respect that. I respect that. But that's a lot, and that's a scary thing. It's like, who are we going to influence? That's a scary thing. Like, I hope I didn't just paint a picture of it's like being a Marine is bad. What I'm hoping that this kid did take away, or maybe why he wanted to be a Marine, is the same thing that I had for my cousins, in the sense that, like, maybe he thinks that I know what I'm doing. Maybe he thinks that I have a good sense of direction. Maybe he likes the confidence in the way that I teach or the respect that I have in myself and other people. And if that's why he wants to do that, then I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? But I hope I didn't just paint some badass picture for him and he's just like, oh, I'm going to do this because this is just fun. Like, it's real shit. And that's heavy. Because, like, as we get older, we see these kids as kids, but it's like we were the same kids. But now, these kids are living in a world where we're about to have another great generation of men. And that's what's scary right now. I don't know what's going to happen with everything going on. That's the fear that I do have. Is I pray we don't have another World War III because this world isn't ready for that anymore. Like, we have eyes to everything. We've never been more tuned in to social media, and I think that's going to shock a lot of people in a different way. I don't think mentally people are ready for that.
And also, to piggyback off of that, just the evolution of the military.
Yeah.
Every single, I'd say, rotation of 4 to 6 years, you have people that look back on their experience of being trained, and it's completely different than the way they're getting trained now. When I went in 2009, I mean, they kept telling us, oh, you have it lucky. You have it lucky compared to where it used to be. It used to be hard. And then I look at it now, I'm like, oh my God, these kids now have no clue what it was like, what I went through. And it's like the further away we went from war, the more we developed the military to be a garrison type of environment. It's not as cutthroat as it was when it was, Korean, Vietnam, Korea, the people that were molded and went through training at that time, they're getting kicked in the chest, elbowed in the neck. Like, it was a different type of training because they had to harden you.
Pain retains.
And you had to get people in the mentality like, look, this is the environment you're going into. People that are joining the military right now, you are going to be the ones that are on the readiness. You are the QRF, the Quick Response Force. If things really went downhill, we just told you we have Marines everywhere. If you go in the Marine Corps, you're probably going to get put in a position of help or assistance. And the gravity of that is it's going to make you into a leader. It's going to make you into a man. It's going to make you into a woman. But you have to understand you're playing in a very high, high consequence environment.
High stakes.
With high stakes, high consequence, and the gravity of your decision is going to affect everything. Because the military, if this thing really starts developing in a negative way, the military is going to be a representation of America.
Correct.
And that's the scary part, is that we see what America represents now. We don't have that confidence that, we know that these guys are good. We know they're squared away. It's like, okay, well, I know I'm squared away. I know my boys are squared away. But hopefully these people, I can trust them that they will be able to handle their stuff, and that they won't, take away from all the hard work that we put, ourselves through. And when we get to a place of seeing, like, okay, well, if the people that are going in right now, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, if they're able to take away from people like you, like, oh my God, these people, like Matt is such a great leader. He cares so much about the people he's around. He's able to articulate all the little details that nobody pays attention to. That's what makes people thrive in the military, is pay attention to those little details.
Yeah.
Not making the mistake where if you look left, you might get shot right. Just that little detail of not putting your chin in the right place or not putting your eyes on the right spot. That little bit can completely change the dynamic of survivability. And it takes somebody like you who cares about that, cares about those intricacies, your hips, your eyes, your hands, your feet, because that all plays a part into the big picture. Because if you're able to control your minor movements, then you can control your macro movements. And the macro movements are, the big decisions in your life, the big impacts you have in your life, all the things that your goals. That's big stuff. But you need to have all those little details to get to that, to achieve that.
Yeah.
And just so we can kind of wind down, what would be kind of like a mantra or saying that you kind of live by, that you want to pass by, that you would want to pass to the audience, that they could apply to their everyday life?
Oh man, that's kind of tough.
And the audience is a military and civilian community, so you could do either one of each or one overall.
So something my senior leadership used to say to me was just stay frosty. Right? One thing was stay
Natty
frosty
Ice.
like a motherfucking cupcake, right? So what I mean by that is look, just be on your shit. Like, it's not bad to be that guy that has to sit at a table watching the door, that knows like everyone that comes in and everyone that comes out, that knows like when his silverware is at the edge of the table about to fall off, or whether it's like sitting dead center. Like, it's okay to be hyper vigilant, okay? And you should be hyper vigilant. Now we say don't go patrolling in the red, right? But look, it's okay to be hyper vigilant, because when you're on top of stuff, you're on top of stuff. So for you guys that are service members, first responders, stuff like that, like, be hyper vigilant. Okay, the more that you pay attention, like, there are times to joke around, there are times to procrastinate, but when you're operating, it's just be hyper vigilant. Now, one of my go-to sayings while I was laughing, so I call this my 11th commandment, and this is just for shits and giggles. But one of my catchphrases you guys will get is, "Thou shalt not cast shade if thou cannot throw hands." So look, don't go talking shit if you can't fight, right? And that's what I tell people. I used to tell my Marines that when I would give safety briefs, right? I would tell them, like, look, when you guys are going out, I was like, yeah, you guys might be some hard motherfuckers. I was like, but you don't know who you're going to run into out there, especially when I was stationed here, right? I was like, you don't know who you're going to run into out there. I was like, yeah, you're a jarhead, that's cool. I was like, but you're going to run into the wrong man with some cauliflower out here in these parts. And I was like, so don't talk shit. You know what I mean? If you can't throw hands, be careful out there. And that goes for you fighters too, because just because you fight, that's the other thing, right? Just because you fight doesn't mean you need to go out throwing hands. You know what I'm saying? Don't go looking for that. Right. But at the same time, when one starts, throw those hands,
One of the sayings that our first guest, Rich Corson, said was, if you are not good at something, you have nothing to brag about. If you are good at something, you don't have to brag.
There you go.
There was a saying as well. Let's see. Don't sorry. If you're prepared, sorry.
Well, anyway, so
yeah, go.
Well,
I'll come back. I'm gonna circle back on it.
We're good. So the what I really wanted to kind of do is also let the audience know how could people be paying attention to what your endeavors are, and how can what are your future what do you got going on in the future that people can kind of start paying attention to / attend?
Well, that's kind of tough. So, like right now, by the way, for those you don't know, my day job, I'm actually the VP of sales for an electrical contracting company, a solar company. So I work at Florida Electric and Solar. So what I do in my professional environment is I sell residential and commercial solar equipment. Right, we install solar and we produce offsets for people so they can save a lot of money on their energy. Right, that's what I do. So I'm always working and making moves in that industry. As far as martial arts, if you're trying to follow me, it's tough to say right now because I've got some injuries. I got a torn left knee and a torn right ankle, and that just comes from not taking enough rest when you do get injured. So that's a little bit of advice for you guys out there. Like, look, you know your body better than anyone else. When you are overtrained, sometimes you do have to take that break. Your coaches are going to tell you otherwise, but listen, sometimes you do have to take that break. So for me, I would just keep a lookout for a fall time frame is what I'm going to say, because good knee, bad knee, no knee, I'm fighting this year, okay? I'm fighting this year. CFFC, we've got some negotiations to make out. I definitely want to fight for them. They're on UFC Fight Pass. I'm 28, I'm not old, but I'm not a young cat in this game anymore, and I don't need to be in the MMA world that long, but I'm definitely here to make my splash in that short period of time. And I want to go pick on some of these good guys in the world. Not to be a bully, but they got some smoke coming for them. So I would just keep a lookout for the fall time. Other than that, though, I do have an Instagram, which is Matty Ice MMA. I don't do the best job of upkeeping it. You're going to see some random crap. You might see videos of me and my dog, me driving around my Hellcat, just something stupid. But I will be posting things about grappling matches, fights, stuff like that. So look, I compete. When I'm healthy, I try to compete at something every single month, whether it's grappling or a fight or even wrestling competition. I like to stay busy, so just keep a lookout, Matty Ice MMA on Instagram, and you'll see anything I'll be doing as far as competition goes.
Is there any way the audience could see any of your prior fights?
Yeah, you have to buy them. My last fight was on Fight TV. It's spelled FITE. So it was Combat Quest 9 Revenge. I think it's like $20, something like that. So if you pay for that, you can watch me fight my last title fight. That's a good one to watch. I didn't get to finish the dude, but he's tough. So you get to see me go the whole duration of the fight. And
the benefit is seeing the tape. Just documenting it. You critique it.
Yeah, I definitely. I'm big on critiquing myself. There's definitely a lot of moments you'll watch and you're like, man, like I could have done so much more in that moment. But then it's also good because you'll have moments where you're like, did I really just transition to that? Like, must have done that like secondhand nature. It's good to see. So definitely, if you're a fighter and you can study any of your tape, study it. But don't do the opposite though. Don't study your opponent. Listen, this is my personal advice. I feel like people study their opponent too much, and now they're like, and I hear it even with really good pro fighters that I train with. It's like, oh man, but I gotta watch out for his this or I gotta watch out for his that. Why are you assuming that his this or his that is better than yours? Right? Do you not train that? Do you not do double legs? Do you not, throw side kicks? Do you not set up straights? Do you not set up you don't do the same shit as them? So look, have respect for what their approach to fighting is. Absolutely, recognize like what their weapon systems are. Right? Like we do that in the Marine Corps. So if any of you vets are fighting, right, you got to know about that salute and that draw D. Okay, you got to know what these guys are doing. However, you got to be aware of your own capabilities as well, right? So don't stay there every day sweating the dude you're gonna fight, right? Know his build, know his style. Other than that, you're the baddest man on 2 feet, right? So don't make your game plan simply to counter his game plan. You still got your offense, right?
Don't get caught up in paralysis by analysis.
There you go. Paralysis by analysis. I like that. That's tough.
Thank you so much, Matt, for blessing us. And for the audience, I want to just kind of commend Matt for being able to paint a picture for one, what it's like to be a teacher, and also what it's like when you care. So there's a lot of people when I was serving that were in leadership roles that you could obviously tell didn't care. And it was very, very, very few that you could count that actually did care, let alone would spend the time to make you better. And hearing what you did for your Marines, hearing what you do for your students, hearing what you did for your fellow classmates, you know, you were always going forward with the intention of making everybody better, even if you came off as a dick.
Yeah, which
You know?
I do a lot by accident, unintentionally.
But it's just it's your delivery, but the intention behind it.
Yeah, it's good.
It's pure. You want everyone to be the best that they can be, and it almost drives you insane because you want everyone to be so good, and it's that drive that it's a disconnect with society because people don't see the best in themselves. They need somebody to be like, oh, I could do that. Okay, yeah, maybe I can do that. Like, hell yeah, you can do that.
You're damn right.
You're damn right you can do that. You can do that, this, and this.
You got two arms and two legs.
Yeah,
just
don't
like
tell
me.
yourself no. So, like, if people don't have that, you're that person in their life. And you are the most valuable person that drives them. And you know, they thrive to be better because of the way you push them. And if anything, you are a standard that they're trying to achieve. They're like, oh, man, Matt's going to be like, oh, he's going to correct me. Or Matt's going to correct me if I don't do that. Oh, Matt's going to do this if I don't do that. Oh, what would Matt say if I did that? I don't know if I could do that. You don't understand. That's the thought process that's now going in these people's minds. That 17-year-old kid, he's thinking about you. Like, what would Matt do? What would Matt say in this situation? That's the gravity of your voice.
Yeah, and that's what stresses me out too. You know, when you are in that position, it's like, look, you got to understand that during those times where you're in their eyeballs, like you have to leave the right like you have to set the right standard because you never know who's looking up to you. Like you have no clue how much certain people value you and how much they want to be like you, and hopefully they want to be the better parts of you. You know, so you got to learn how to keep the other ones out.
And no matter how shitty you look at yourself, you think of yourself as like a terrible person, the people around you won't even notice those negative parts. They'll only be able to highlight your incredible, amazing traits. And, you know, you might become depressed because you're hypercritical, but in reality, you're changing the lives of everyone around you. And you may teach because you love it.
I do.
You may teach because you just want to really become an expert at the details. That's what teaching does. It allows you to understand something in such a way that you can teach it. But the side effect of that is now you have people that may be going into the Marine Corps, and you may be influencing the future generation of our military.
Right.
You know, and all you're doing is, I like to teach. You know, that's all I like to do. I'm just, you know, I'm
leading from the front.
You know, I don't know how to do it differently. So I just kind of want to wrap this up. I want to say, Matt, thank you so much. You being my teacher as well, just watching you and seeing you in your environment, it's like a lion in the jungle or a lion in the safari. You know, they're naturally put into the place where they can thrive. And it's seeing you in that environment is, you know, give you the reins and let's go.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah,
thank you for your service, buddy.
Hey, thank you guys for yours. And
yeah,
you know, it's my pleasure. I really do love teaching. I love giving back. I feel like everyone should. Not to get too scientific, but the only purpose of a cell is to pass on information to the next cell. So, I mean, we all got the same amount of time every day. Can't store it. You have to burn it every single day. That checking account's empty. And that clock resets with your time, with your seconds of every day. And you just got to do the right things with it. And, you know, that's what I try to do. If I'm around, I try to make sure that I'm spending my time influencing those people in the right way or giving them everything I can, you know, in the time that I have to do so.
Knowledge means nothing if it's not passed on.
Correct.
So, to the audience, this is my first Devil Dog interview.
Kill.
We you know, we're so grateful and, you know, appreciative of Matt. So for the audience, stay tuned. We got a lot more coming on. Check out our YouTube, check out our Instagram, and we're starting to get our TikTok all put together. But
snap.
Check us out. We got a lot going on, and all we want to do is hear people's stories and highlight people that are making big changes in their community, and Matt is a pillar in that, and he is a great model that we should emulate. So,
Absolutely.
everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, and check us out for our future episodes.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, boys.
Hoorah!
Right.